Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Cases. I'm Shant Kerbabian. Gender equality refers to the view that men and women should receive equal treatment and should not be discriminated against based on gender. This is the objective of the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which seeks to create equality in law and in social situations, such as in democratic activities and securing equal pay for equal work and education. The status of women in the modern Middle East has been in transition since the early part of the 20th century. Customary laws, Islamic laws, imported European laws, and reformed versions of Islamic laws affect women in varying degrees in different Middle Eastern legal systems, and the status of women does not seem to have been settled in any of them. But till today, women worldwide continue to be at a disadvantage, and these gaps between women and their male peers is still there. Although these gaps have been steadily narrowing across the world as women overcome the cultural and structural barriers to full equality. But in the Middle East and North Africa region, they remain especially stubborn and set against a particular challenging environment. Today we take on gender equality in the Middle East, and especially in Lebanon, and we try to focus on latest developments regarding the issue. And with us to discuss the case today in studio is Dr. Gulnar Wakim, sociologist and specialist in gender studies. And also joining us via satellite from Beirut is Mr. Mohammed Kleit, journalist and human rights activist. Welcome. Now, before we get to our discussion, we have a report. Let's check it out.
The unstable political environment and turmoil in Lebanon, in addition to the recent deteriorating security condition, contributed to the decline of the social situation of women. The increase of sectarianism due to the confessional system that Lebanon embraces and the conflicts in Syria divides the Lebanese, and it has become more difficult for people to join hands and call for the improvement of human rights conditions. However, the outbreak of the war in Syria, the worsening security situation in Lebanon, and many other incidents led to the improvement of the work of civil society in Lebanon in terms of launching advocacy campaigns and actions that address both Lebanese and refugees. Lately, Lebanese activists took to social media following the deaths of many women to condemn the 7-month delay in enacting the domestic violence law offered by Kafa organization, due to political disagreements and backlog of bills linked to the Syrian civil war. Last year's death of Rula Yaqub, whose family said her husband beat her to death in front of her children, first brought the issue to the fore. The International Women's Day in Beirut this year was distinctive in terms of celebrating it. Around 4,000 protesters took to the streets of Beirut on the occasion of International Women's Day, demanding the approval of Lebanon's first law against domestic violence. Today, although Lebanon's parliament passed a law on April 1, 2014, criminalizing domestic violence, many activists, in particular Kafa organization, are holding off on celebrating because they say the law does not go far enough to protect women from domestic violence, as the law still endorses marital rape and other clauses that is seen degrading to Lebanese women.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Gulnar, thank you for being on the show, and it's a pleasure having you. Now let's get right away into the issue.
Yes.
I mean, I know you're eager to talk about the recent law that passed in Lebanon, but before that, let's give a general overview of the case. I mean, gender equality, it's a huge debate. It's a long issue. But if you take the case of Lebanon, I mean, a lot of people, and it's a common idea that is everywhere, that Lebanon is doing actually better than its peers in the Arab countries. How true is that statement when it comes to gender equality, of course?
We think that the situation in Lebanon is better because looking at the country, we have more mixture, which gives it a more modern version or image. But this is not true. The best situation is, of course, in Tunisia. And this is thanks to Bourguiba, who brought new laws inside his country, and Tunisia became a real civil country with Bourguiba. And this is pushed everywhere in the social situation in this great country, and with the great contribution of this president.
What laws are we talking about that,
well, we're
that
talking
evoked
about,
this
first
change
of all,
in Tunisia?
something very daring that Bourguiba did is monogamy. You can't practice polygamy in Tunisia, although it's 99% of Muslims. Second, the equality in payroll. I mean, everyone is paid, women and men, the same thing. He pushed women into working, and this is the major point. If you're not independent financially, you can't ask for your freedom, and you can't get anything. We can also talk about the freedom of speech. Tunisia is a very developed country in arts and theater and cinema, and unfortunately what we're seeing today is not the Tunisia we saw during Bourguiba's period, and even with Ben Ali, although the political situation was bad, the situation of women was much better than any other Arab country. The situation in Syria is better. Why don't we talk about Syria? Syria, the empowerment of women started very early. And in the 80s, they were pushing women more into factories, into working. And this is exactly how women got their freedom in Europe. So the situation in Lebanon is not as good as we think. I mean, it's not only about speaking foreign languages or about studying, because most of women, and many of these women, are doing their studies only to get a richer husband. It's not at all to be involved in
some sort of a prestige.
Exactly. So we shouldn't see things just with the nice image it's given, or with the modern version women are giving. Sometimes women themselves, they don't want their independence, okay? And this is something else. But back to Lebanon.
What is that? Due to what?
Due to, it's good to have someone paying everything for me.
Of course.
Okay? So we shouldn't only look, if someone wants something, you can get it. And this is exactly what happened with this law. There were some associations working for this law, but also many people went into in the street because they couldn't handle anymore the image of these women being beaten or hit by their husbands.
We're talking about the newly passed law in Lebanon. I think one of the most active organizations was CAFA, that was pushing for this law.
Of course, CAFA did an excellent work, but also women we saw in the street. I mean, I was in the street, and it's my duty to be in the street, but I saw many women, and they are not part of any association or NGO or even a party. And this is why we got the best demonstration, the last one, because we didn't have as much as we got 3 years ago, all these political parties who were there, and they didn't vote for the law in the parliament. This is schizophrenic in Lebanon. How can you vote against something in the parliament and then you are participating in the demonstrations? Is it only to get pictures, or it doesn't work, it doesn't fit? So the situation in Lebanon is not good, and this is something you can test with women who can't give the passport or the identity card for their children. Second, women are not paid equally as men. Third, women can't open a bank account for their children. I mean, imagine you're marrying someone who's not good, who's a bad person, or even it's normal for you to be able to go and open a bank account.
Secure your kids, basically.
Exactly. You can't sign the papers for traveling. And until, I think, 5 years ago, women needed a paper from their husbands to travel. I mean, this is still a patriarchal society.
There are a lot of restrictions still.
It's a patriarchal society. It's a traditional society. It's related to agriculture societies. Old agriculture societies are very traditional. France is a traditional country. They got many laws, but I mean, until now, women are not equal in France. Domestic violence is very high in France. It's very high in Russia. It's lower in Great Britain because it's more an industrial country. So this is something we have to put in context. And this is why Lebanon is a country where the economic situation, we don't really understand how it's working.
Excuse me, doctor, here's the thing. I mean, everything you talked about are things that naturally should exist for women. But since we're living in a patriarchal society, in a society that has been this way for so long, but what is it that is not evoking any change yet? We're in 2014, for Christ's sake. What is it that we're waiting for?
Well, you're waiting for a state, first of all. You don't have a state, you don't have a government, we are completely cut, well, the mass is completely cut from politicians. Second, who is representing you? I mean, women we have in the parliament are just filling a gap. They don't represent any of us. I mean, I'm not represented by our deputies, or even the
women's
ministers.
Representation in the parliament is also very sad.
It's very low, but at the same time, for me, I don't really believe in the quota thing. I believe that you have a quality person Sharb al-Nahas is a minister that represents me as a woman, but I won't name any other deputy because all of them, they don't represent me. What are they doing? They're just filling the gap for their children to be 25 or 26 to be able to be deputies or presidents or etc.
Paving the way.
Exactly. So they are not fighting, they are not doing the fight. It's sometimes just for the media that they sign something. But what are they? The whole system should be broken. It's the confessional system that has to be broken also. Because after all, these people are representing a corrupt system. So the corrupt system is not only against women, it's against children, it's against everything.
It's corrupt. So that describes it enough. Allow me to interrupt you here, Doctor, because I'm going to go to our guest via satellite from Beirut, Mr. Mohammed Kleit, human rights activist and a journalist. Mr. Mohammed, welcome and thank you for joining us. Mr. Mohammed, before we get into the newly passed law and discuss that, I would like to ask you, as a human rights activist, how do you view the situation, and if we talk about gender equality in Lebanon, what is your own point of view regarding this issue?
Well, I think it's more than obvious that there is a degrading view of men towards women, and I personally see that the problem is not from. Of course, there are two problems here that you can talk about. First of all, is the education of men, and whether it's from home or from schools. When you grow up thinking that you're better than the woman, you're in a higher class than a woman, then you'll be looking at a degrading view towards women.
Ms. Ahmed, allow me to interrupt you for a second. You mentioned education of men, but I believe that the same issue implies also education for women.
I was going to that point. That's the second problem that we have. I was once at a conference about women's rights about 4 years ago or 3 years ago at a Lebanese university, and I concluded that the main problem for women is women. Because when a woman accepts to come out in a degrading view on the media or on the streets, such as we see in many programs, where they accept to come out in front of millions of viewers, just in a very shallow way, in a way that they seem that they only care about their looks, their beauty. They don't care about their wits, their ability in order to do some change. Of course, I'm not talking about all the women in the media. I'm talking about a big portion.
That's the objectification of the women.
Yes, exactly. So when people see that, even women themselves, when they see that view of other females looking like that especially on television, they want to become like that in order to become famous, in order to have prestige. And in the end, in Lebanon, prestige is a very sacred thing for our society. So when women see that, when see other females doing the same thing, they want to be that woman in that television and on that station or whatever program. So they try to be like that, whether by their looks, even by the way they talk. Their way of thinking also starts to degrade, which in a way attracts these problems towards them.
Mr. Mohammed, what is your opinion about the newly passed law? Before I take this matter to the studio, to Dr. Gulnar, who's passionate about this, I need to ask your point of view. What do you think of the newly passed law?
Well, as it seems that this law is not totally pro of what CAFA or other feminist organizations have asked for. It's not completely righteous towards the women, although in some parts of it, it grants them more rights that they should already have, rather than fighting for these natural rights, as you mentioned. At the same point, there are some issues that were mentioned when it comes to indoor rape from the husband. Now, this is a very controversial issue. You see that you have at one side that you don't have the evidence that rape happened, except if there were bruises and so on. But if there were no bruises, how would you actually believe the woman that there was actually an incident of rape? In the end, this is a married woman. There is no biological way in order to prove that.
Well, I'm going to take this matter to Dr. Gulnar now. Doctor, what do you think of, let's discuss this law. Let's put it, I mean, there has been some bad reviews of the law, and people have been claiming the law to be that horrible. Is it really that horrible?
I agree with Minister Mohammed about well, the issue of rape at home. The law is not that bad. I mean, especially let's put it in the context of the country. We have no government. I mean, the focus of this government is more for the security, and second, the parliament is not working. I mean, they were not voting for anything. So I think that the law was really good. What we got is really good for the context of the country. Now, regarding violence, violence was really defended and presented in a very good way, because when we talk about domestic violence, they are not talking only about physical violence, but also about insults, about verbal violence, and this is very important, because I don't need to be hit all the time just to say that this is domestic violence. Prohibiting me from working, this is domestic violence. Insulting me, ignoring me is domestic violence.
So I think there should be, we should redefine the word domestic violence.
Exactly, and I think in the law it's in a way well presented, because they focused on the verbal violence and they focused on domestic violence, and this is excellent.
Dr. Gulnar, I'm going to have to interrupt you. We're going to continue this after this short break, ladies and gentlemen. Stay tuned.
Around the world, outside the mainstream, anywhere, everywhere. A media of your land, of your creation. A new media in a new era. Will it take the lead in the future? I believe so. This is Underground.
Underground, when vague turns to clarity.
Time. Variable. Events. The only constant variable in life is change. Broader perspective. Arguments and counter-arguments on our platform.
Global Insights. The globe on our platform.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Now, Dr. Gulnar, before the break, we're discussing the law, and I want you to continue because this is very important. This is a very important point we're trying to get across. So, when it comes to rape, a matter to rape, and domestic violence, you were saying?
Okay, so domestic violence, it's clear. The law is very clear, and this is a great achievement with all the women we lost. Now, regarding rape. I mean, talking about rape, we can't separate the civil law in Lebanon from religious laws. And this is something very present. If you want to talk about this complete separation and then to talk about rape, you will have religious people telling you that, no, we can't prove rape at home, okay? So in this case, what are you asking for? You're asking for something bigger from the law itself.
Separation.
You're asking for separation.
Of
Can we get
religion?
separation now? No, we can't get it. And this is something not only affecting rape at home, it's affecting also the right for me taking my children in case I have divorce, and this is something
that is
that
important. The custody laws
exactly.
also.
So this is something I can't completely touch since I can't separate the civil laws from the religious laws. So if we are asking for more than this law, then yes, we are right, and this law it has its obstacles and its limitations. But if we're talking about the law itself to stop domestic violence, stop losing more people, because we're losing lives, we're losing mothers, and these children are traumatized, I think that the achievement is here. So let's separate things. In this case, yes, we have other battles. Of course we have other battles. We have so many battles.
Do you think this is the beginning of the fight, though?
Of course. It's just like throwing a stone. And I think that we shouldn't lose it. We got something. We have to stick to it and then to fight for other things.
And maybe take it to the next level.
Of course.
Now, we have a video that is about women speaking out against gender-based violence, and it has everything to do with what we were talking about. Let's take a listen, and then we'll get back and talk about it.
لازم تحكي، تشتغلي، تتعلم.
طالبي بحقوقك لو شو ما صار.
لازم تعبري عن رأيك لو شو ما كان.
إنه يكون في أعمل اللي بدي إياه. في أعبر عن مشاعري كمان لما ما بدي.
لأنه البنت إذا بدها تحارب حدا لازم تحاربه بعلمها.
بدي أدرس أنا لساتني صغيرة.
أيوه، البنت اللي مثلك للدراسة صح؟
إيه مزبوط. وما أنا بدي أدرس. طب ليش؟ أنا لساتني صغيرة بدي أدرس. لا بدك تشتغلي وروحي نقلي يلا.
كنت لو كفيت الدراسة كنت بفوت بالحقوق، يعني إنه بصير محامية كنت حابة، بس ما كفيت الدراسة.
بقلها إنه أحكي اللي صار معك حتى لو بدهم يقتلوكي.
يعني أوقات احنا بنضل شهرين 3 قاعدين بالبيت ما بنطلع. هني بيروحوا بيظهروا، يعني بيروحوا لوين ما بدهم، بس ما بياخذونا إلي معهم.
شوف البنات كيف عم تطلع، كيف عم تفوت، كيف عم تتعرف، اما انت قاعده بالبيت مثلا بتروحي على دوامك على مدرستك وبترجعي بس هيك. بحس انه غير نحن، انه هن انه بيطلعوا بفوتوا، نحن لا كله قاعد بالبيت وهيك.
شو هالحكي هاد؟
طب انا عم بعمل شي عيب؟
لا، كل هذا مو عيب.
طيب شو؟
لا بدك تشتغلي، شو ناقصك؟
ما انا قصدي شي، انا قصدي مو مشان المصاري او شي، انا قصدي عشان تسلا يعني غير
تتسلي بشغل البيت.
يا عماسي يا حمارة تعالي لهون. تعالي لهون. شو هالاكل اللي عمليته انتي؟ مش طيب بالمرة، بتعرفيني ما بحب هاي الاكل، ليش عمليتها؟
هو اخذ كل حقوقه، بس نحن ما فينا ناخذ حقوقنا لانه بنت. دائما البنت انه بيقولوا انه بنت، لا الشاب انه هو يعطينه كل حريته بالكامل. نحن البنات
يا بنتي اليوم اجاك عريس طلبك على سنة الله ورسوله.
شو المعنى يا بابا؟
المعنى انه العريس بناس غني معه مصاري بدنا نجوزك لإله.
بس يا بابا انه انا بعدني بنت صغيرة عمري 13 سنة، ماني فاكرة بهالموضوع.
شو صغيرة ما صغيرة؟
لازم احكي.
وحكيتي؟ ما انك حاسة حالك احسن؟
كثير.
Welcome back. I love how the video ended with women opening up their eyes, and I hope it's a wake-up call. I mean, I hope, like, we need a lot of wake-up calls, and there are a lot of issues to be discussed here, but violence, speaking about domestic violence, and most importantly, speaking about women speaking up when they're exposed to violence. I mean, we know there's the taboo, the stigma, and there is the social barriers. What can we say about this?
This is so complicated, and it's a big issue. I mean, I'll talk quickly about a few points. I mean, regarding violence, the problem in the Arab world, when you experience violence, you want people to experience it after you. This is something psychological. And in general, women who suffer early from domestic violence or from any kind of violence, it may come from the husband or from his family or from her family, they will make these women, the new women coming in the family, suffer also. Because they gain a certain power at a certain moment when they are older, and they want others to suffer. And this is when you are not conscious of the problems you suffered from. Now, another problem in the Arab world we're facing is that women are what they look like. They are not their professions. I mean, I am a social scientist. You are a journalist. But these women are what they are looking. And they have this promise of the rich husband that will save her from her destiny. I mean, the promise of money is not money. And second, the day he doesn't want you, or you don't fit into what he wants, he's asking you for, he will put you out. The best thing is to be independent financially. And my independence financially passes through, first of all, education. This is where the state has to force all women to be educated, because I know cases, and I got students, they were forced to leave their university because the father said it's too far from the house, or it doesn't suit you as a girl, or I don't know what. And then they have to fight for education, because if you don't fight for your cause, you won't get anything. And they shouldn't accept the fast solution of marrying someone just because he is rich. He is rich for himself, good for him. Of course, if you share the situation, it's better. The most important thing is to love the person. You can't marry someone just because of a certain situation, and you can't offer all the time the physical appearance and then complain about it.
I'm gonna take this point to Mr. Mohammed. Mr. Mohammed, we're talking about a lot of factors. We're talking about women and education. We're talking about violence against women and women speaking up. But socially, what is the social change that has to be evoked within the society to push women to speak out when they are subjected to violence? What are the measures that have to be taken when it comes to education for the society? Not just women, not men, women, and the society as a whole, for a change?
Well, I think I can repeat the first point that I talked about in the first segment, that education is a vital issue in the society, educating women and men at the same time into respecting each other's rights, into respecting global rights for both genders, and especially giving men giving women their rights in all aspects of societal life. I would stress out on the point that women are equal to men as human beings in their rights, in their duties, and their responsibilities, and so on. Of course, there are biological duties that men can do but women can't do, and vice versa.
Mr. Mohammed, can I interrupt you here and ask you a quick question that has to be asked? We're talking about a society that women are not allowed to go to school sometimes in some extreme cases. So what has to be done in these cases? I mean, of course, education has to be enforced, but who has to enforce it with these cases, with these societies?
This comes as responsibility of the government in order to encourage families to let the females of the family to go to schools. I mean, not only raise consciousness about this, but forcing parents to let the girls at least go to a certain level of to have a certain level of education that allows them to understand the world around them, understand the rights that they have, the rights that they should fight for. And in the end, we are living in a patriarchal society that favors men over women. But if we have this educated society, that all parts of it and all statuses, all genders know their rights towards this society, and the rights towards each other, and responsibilities and their duties to this country, then you'd have what Plato called it the perfect society.
Well, Ms. Mohammed, I'm going to ask you a bit edgy question here. Do you think that traditions and religion are playing a positive or negative role in Lebanon?
Now, traditions and religion, there are two
I know, but in Lebanon
issues.
or in the Middle East, they're somehow intertwined.
Exactly. But at some points, they are different. Even here in Lebanon, in this small country, you could go to the east of Lebanon, you have different traditions than the west or the north or the south. You see that in the capital, in Beirut, women are more educated than the women are living in agricultural societies, such as in the east or in the south, even in some parts of the north. But there are also, as Dr. Gulnar has mentioned, that there are women that are not allowed to go to universities because it's far away from home. Well, there are also other cases from the opposite. In order to be fair in this case,
of course,
there are many cases, and some of them I'm related to. That I have a cousin that's living in the other part of this country, living in order to pursue her education. There are other cases. There are people exactly. But the point is that if this society is not an educated society, whether in its agricultural part, in its industrial, or in its services part, that we could not raise the level of awareness about women's rights. In order to raise the level of women in this society, you will not have the good society that will be prosperous and that will go on in a very safe and secure order.
Oh, well, Doctor, I mean, I'm going to go back to the video there for a second. And this is a video that involves not only Lebanese women, but also Syrian refugee women who are currently residing in Lebanon. Do you think this refugee crisis, I mean, when it comes to gender issues and women issues, refugee women issues, I mean, we've heard and we've seen a lot of reports. But do you think, when it comes internally, domestically, do you think it's affecting women's issues in Lebanon itself? This flock of a different flock of women coming to Lebanon and with their own issues. Do you think we have similarities here between the issues, or one is more severe than the other? What do we have here exactly?
The condition, if we talk about the refugees, this is also something else.
True.
I mean, first of all, you have two types of refugees in Lebanon. You have those who are capable to rent a house and be integrated in the society. And these, I mean, Syria and Lebanon, I don't see any difference. I mean, there are no differences. And then you have those who are living in the camps, and this is something completely different.
Exactly. So what happens to these women who are subjected to, for example, domestic violence or like or marital rape, for example?
I can compare them to Darfur ladies. I mean, I can compare them to the situation. What I read about refugees in the camps in Lebanon, I can compare it a lot in the rape, with the rape situation, domestic violence, all type of violence or intimidation, or I mean, this is really, I see Darfur in front of me, and it's something that drives me crazy, that in my country, this is how people are being treated instead of giving them better chance, because no one leaves his house just for the pleasure of leaving, and no one comes to live in a camp just for the pleasure. Now, do we have an effect from the camps on the Lebanese society? No, not really. I mean, and you don't neither have it from Syrians inside the camps on Syrians who are outside the camp. There are two things that are different.
True.
And I think that we have the problems, we are the problem. I mean, we are the serious problem. Our laws are the problems. And another problem, Mr. Mohammed talked about education. Education is important, but the most important thing is also to create opportunities for work. I mean, 75% of Lebanese students, when they graduate, they don't work in their fields. This is something huge. Now you have 50,000 men leaving every year the country to work outside, but the number is not as big for women, which means that you are getting your degree again to stay at home. And when you stay at home, I mean, if you stay at home, your degree will mean nothing in 6 months or 1 year. So education is a must. Empowering women in work, and not, I mean, every time they talk about empowerment of women through NGOs, it's only about selling marmalade and kishk and za'atar. I mean, this is not the only way you can empower women. Women should be empowered just like what happened Let's take what happened in the ex-Soviet Union countries. In Iran, let's take Russia, let's take Europe. They had to go into factories. You have to create something where you have a work that is consistent, where you are economically independent and you are working, you know that this is something that will last for a long time.
Excuse me, doctor, like since we're talking about empowerment, there was a interesting survey in 2009 that happened, and the result, I mean, the number maybe not be significant, but I think it's significant. 5.3% of girls aged 15 to 19 were either married, divorced, or widowed.
This is in Lebanon.
In Lebanon. Oh. And we're talking about empowerment, we're talking about education, but we have numbers like this. I mean, 5.3% of girls aged 15 to 19. This brings us to a lot of issues, and I think this is a very dangerous indicator. This is in 2009. This was the last survey. So, we're talking about great ideas, but how can we implement these?
I think that we are getting, the money that is entering in Lebanon is huge. Unfortunately, again, corruption. Now, how can you do it? Is it only about making me work or making a 20-year-old girl work? No, it's also about empowering and making women who are 50 years old or 40 years old. What do they do in Europe? If you spend 6 months you're not working, they teach you something and then they push you into this field to work. You have to work. So we have women who are at home, they have to feed the family, and they end up cleaning or doing specific work that is not really empowerment, because they are slaves when they are working. They depend upon the employer, and then this is not the best solution you can get. How can you get a better solution? Let's open more factories. Why should we bring everything from China? I mean, China is great, but let's look at Turkey. In Turkey, anything Chinese is so expensive because they want you to buy something produced in Turkey, and this is the normal thing all over the world. Why should we buy everything? Of course, it's less expensive to get this pen from China, but I want my people to work. I want a mother who has 4 kids or 5 kids at home to feed them in a decent way and in a respectful way.
So we're talking about a whole system. We're talking about a whole package that has to be...
But it's not hard. Trust me, it's not hard, because it's a small country, and then we have this contagious system in this country. We copy each other, and the copy-paste, sometimes it's good. Unfortunately, until now, we are seeing more negative sides.
It's not been working.
But it can work. It's not impossible. And I believe in not only women, but also men. Let's look at these generations who during the Civil War lost everything in the port or in elsewhere. I mean, they are doing nothing.
True.
So we can create, we can make it.
Okay. Allow me now to interrupt you, because we're going to take a break. And after the break, we'll go to our last segment, which is the bullet point segment. Stay tuned.
Beyond the lines, beyond the surface, depth, clarity, substance. Beyond the discourse,
beyond politics, beyond the shallowness of everyday politics.
In the world of business, numbers tell truth. Investors seek startups and bankers provide loans. Stocks rise and fall. Traders anticipate shipments and cargo ships unload. But we at Al-Ittijah News spin the globe to bring you your weekly dose of business news.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're in the third segment, the last segment, which is the bullet point segment, where we present bullet points and take comments from our guests. And the first one is an interesting fact, where Lebanon had achieved several important milestones towards gender equality, including granting political rights to women in 1953, giving married women the rights to choose their citizenship in 1960, allowing women to be elected in local councils in 1963, abolishing the requirements of husband's permission on travel in 1974, establishing equal retirement ages and social security benefits for men and women in 1984, and allowing women to practice commerce without the husband's permission in 1994, and repelling honor crimes in 2011. I mean, we're trying to shed some light on the positive here. Mr. Mohammed, don't you think all these all these figures, all these facts that I mentioned are considered some silver lining?
Yes, of course. If you compare it to the surroundings in the Middle East or in North Africa, these numbers are actually great. I mean, till now you have in certain Gulf states, women can't travel without the permission of their husband, their fathers, or even there was a case of a 70-year-old widow that had to take the permission of her own son in order to travel outside Saudi Arabia. It happened around 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
True.
And at the same point, you see that there was also another statistic that happened in 2009 about these issues, about gender issues, that there are around, the women in Lebanon, there are around 800,000, as I remember, women in Lebanon that have married foreigners or non-Lebanese. 75% of them were Arabs, of Arab nationals, and around 20% of them were Europeans, and 10% of them were Americans. This statistic also shows that women are trying to flee from their Lebanese nationality because it's as worth as nothing, actually, because the Lebanese nationality does not give women any power in this, or any we can see any power or any authority in this country as much as any other foreign national, or most foreign nationals, especially Europeans, Americans, and if we could say Gulf nationalities would give them here in Lebanon.
Dr. Gulnar, I'll take your comment also on the figures that I mentioned. I mean, we've seen that since 1953 and until 2011, like women came a long way, and some positives are there. So what can we say about these?
I think it's very positive. First of all, let's not forget that Lebanon is a very young country. I mean, in the structure of a nation state. So this is first. Second, the obstacle again comes from the religious course. So what we could achieve without religious course is already very good. Third, Lebanon was an agriculture society. Until now, the biggest part of it is an agriculture society. And in agriculture societies, women are the least important. They work, but they are the least important because for a long time, they may be pregnant, which means that they can't produce. And when you don't produce, you are not important as much as the other figures. And the other figures are, of course, the children. This is what we mean when we say that children are more important than anything else, because they will work in the land, and this is why they are more important. The one running the whole business is the father.
Speaking about the children,
you can also see that that the view of an agricultural society is that men view women as an investment. I mean, the more children you have, the easier the work will be on the farm.
Of course.
Well, that changed for somehow, and let's hope it keeps on. Let's hope it keeps changing. Speaking of the children, speaking of citizenship, and the idea you also, Mohammed, mentioned of Lebanese women marrying foreigners. There is a distinction between nationality and citizenship. Now, while nationality is the legal relationship between individual and state, the term citizenship has a wider meaning and denotes a status bestowed on full members of a community. Now, this brings me to the issue of, Dr. Gulnar, the issue of women passing on their citizenships, and especially the case we mentioned, we have a lot of Lebanese women, for example, since we're talking about Lebanon, married to foreigners, non-Lebanese, and they're not able to give them the citizenship or the nationality. And also when it comes to citizenship, do you think women fully bestowed the status of members of the community in Lebanon?
Of course, this is a lack of respect of not allowing women to provide the citizenship to their children. I mean, my aunt is married to a Palestinian man. He's a great person. My cousins, we lost them in not giving them the citizenship. I mean, my cousin had to leave to Belgium to work there, and my cousin, she suffers. It's thanks to two persons that the situation was better, thanks to Ziad Beirut years ago, who allowed women to, first of all, the papers you do them now for 3 years, and it's thanks to Sharb al-Nahas that we got the right for women married to foreigners to let them work without a work permit. So now, again, why women can't give the passport or the citizenship to their children? It's because we have deputies and politicians who are not doing their work. They are not doing anything. So it stopped where it stopped.
Okay.
I mean, it was the case also in other countries. In Tunisia, she can give the citizenship. In Algeria, she can give the citizenship. Although the situation of women is very bad in Algeria. But on that point, it's in a way
because
better.
It's a very sacred right.
They hide behind the Palestinian thing and the right to go back to Palestine. Well, this is something purely, this is a big lie.
This is something that could be solved. There are millions of things that could be done.
And then it's as if you were considering that women are not as clever as men in the choice they are making, and men are taking advantage of their choices. Well, this is something, well, how can you explain it in a different way? I have no other explanation for it. And why aren't they voting for it? I mean, I think we have people who are just they're doing their business through the post of being deputy or minister or anything else, and they are not considering that we are losing these people, and it's not about the number inside Lebanon, it's about the quality of people. And imagine this mother who passes the language, religion, education, values, ethics, but she can't give the citizenship.
Okay, Mr. Mohammed, we have a couple of minutes. I would like to take your final comments. I mean, what do you think? What can we hope for the future, especially in Lebanon, when it comes to gender equality, when it comes to women's rights in general?
Well, of course, in a general way, I would really hope that the situation of women in Lebanon would shift to something very grand in the coming years after this great shift that we had in the law. In a more practical way, the NGOs that really care about women's rights and not only taking care of filling up their pockets from their financiers. I've worked with these NGOs for over 12 NGOs.
In the case of NGOs, it's a whole episode.
It's a whole different story, I know. I've worked for 6 years with NGOs, and I have not seen any NGO that's really working on the cause, whether it's women's rights,
well, and let's be fair, I mean, some NGOs are doing
of course,
really
some of them.
work,
I'm not saying all of them, exactly. But NGOs that really want to work on these gender issues, especially towards women's rights, they should really educate women, not only by inviting them to their centers, by also going to their houses, by going to schools and pressuring the administration of schools and universities in order to teach women how to keep their rights, how to defend them, and how to claim rights that they naturally have, but the government has stripped it from them. Not only the government, but also religious authorities, corrupt religious authorities, to be fair. Because in religion, women are sacred. Whether it's in Islam, in Judaism, or in Christianity, women are all sacred. In the end, we have many female figures over the centuries that have led nations and have led the crowds. Yes.
Mohammed, I'll have to interrupt you here because we're short of time. Dr. Gulnar, we have less than 1 minute. I mean, as citizens, as a journalist, I'm not saying journalist or anything. What has to be done?
I think that now we got something that we don't have in Lebanon. For the first time, or in few cases, we saw people who are gathered not because of their religion or their confession or because of a certain leader. We have a group of people, they are very different. They are here just because they are fighting a specific cause. We have to keep targeting causes. I mean, now we have to pass for the citizenship element, and we can gain people who are with a different mentality, and mixture in the society is something very rich. So let's focus on a different battle. Our battle, the first battle, we got it, and we have to congratulate ourselves because we all made it and we were part of it. Now we have to focus on something else. Let's focus on citizenship. Let's focus on less corruption in Lebanon.
Okay, Dr. Gulnar, Wakim, thank you very much for being here with us, our guest, and also Mr. Mohammed, Kleit, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. This was today's episode. I mean, we realize this is the beginning of the fight, but I hope we did the women who suffered and who passed away during domestic violence fair. I'm not going to mention names, but they are out there, and I would urge any women who are going through violence, there's no reason whatsoever for you to shut up and not be quiet, speak up, and go out there. The law, some way, somehow, will protect you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching. See you next week. Bye-bye.